Hey guys, welcome to the All the Glory podcast. My name is Carly and I'm your podcast host. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Bailey Martinson. I actually went to high school with her, but we connected outside of high school after college or during college. And she actually led a Bible study and I joined it and we've just been really close ever since. And she's an amazing friend, a sister, a daughter, and I absolutely love her. So I thought that she could bring a lot of good advice here to the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy.
Hi guys, so this is my friend Bailey Martinson. So I'm just going to have her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself.
Yeah, hi guys. So I am a really good friend of Carly's. I mean, I guess you could say, right? So we do a lot of cool things together. Like we write blogs together, we have done Bible studies together, and she's just a really great friend of mine. I love her so much. But I am a student at Ball State. I'm a social work major. And I also lead a Bible study at Ball State. Of women, mostly freshmen, some underclassmen too. So I do that, and I've done a lot of Bible studies with Carly too. So yeah, we talk a lot about purpose in our Bible study. We talk a lot about like what our calling is. We talk about like our journeys with Jesus, and we kind of just do life together. So it's super fun and I love it. And I'm a kind of a new leader, so I'm still learning, but yeah, I love it a lot. So
That's awesome. I love to hear it. So since you were talking about purpose and all of those things, how do you differentiate between a purpose and a calling on your life? Like if there is a difference?
yeah, and that's really tough. And I've noticed with like my girls that is something that they all really just need. Like they need to know their purpose and their calling, and that's a question that they all have. Like, what is that? Why has God created me? Like what has God created me to do? And obviously we all have that question, right? Like we all kind of think about that. And especially in college, you're trying to figure out all of those things. But what we had a lesson one day, and I'm not really sure if I came up with this or I might have read this in the Bible, and I feel like God might have like spoken it a little bit. So I'm not going to take full credit for it because I'm not sure if I came up with this or not. But but we were talking about how your purpose and your calling are actually two different things, which not a lot of people I think about. Um, and in the Bible it says like that God created us in his image, so like that would be our purpose, just to be like a child of God, just to be in his presence and created by him. And our calling is something that God has created us to do on the earth, I guess, if that makes sense. So like your purpose is something you just have, right? And your calling is like connected with your purpose, but it's like the thing that God has created you to do. So it kind of makes it easier because like when you're thinking about your purpose, you don't have to work so hard because your purpose is just something that you have because God created you. So like you breathing, basically you're living out your purpose. Like every day when you're doing your everyday things, you're living out your purpose. So we talked a lot about that this year. And it was so cool because like that clicks in your head, life is just so much lighter, and it's
Yeah.
just so cool because God is just so good. Like we don't have to do anything really. Even if we didn't live out our calling, we still have like our purpose because he created us and he loves
Right.
us. So yeah, I think that was like I think that's the main difference for me. And that's shown up a lot in my life because I like to, Carly, like I'm very like driven, very
Yeah.
like goal oriented, so that sometimes messes me up because I'm like, if I don't do all these things, do I still have purpose? And the Lord's always like, yes, you're fine, like so yeah, I think for me that helped, yeah, a lot. So
That's
mhm.
awesome. I think that also another thing with our purpose would be like to be in relation with one another, which and all of those
Yes,
things like his, commandments to love me and like love one another as you love yourself, like all of those things, and just being like here and loving God and like having a relationship with him is our purpose, like you said, which is really
yeah,
good. And then when it comes to our
yeah,
calling, I feel like even I get like confused. I'm like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, do you have a specific thing to kind of figure out, okay, is this right where I'm supposed to be? Like, how do you
Right.
tell what your calling is supposed to be?
Right. Yeah, I was just about to kind of mention that too, is like I feel like your purpose, although like we talked about your purpose, just like loving God, loving others, and like belonging to the Lord, that never changes. But I feel like your calling can shift, like depending on what season you're in. And like, like you might be called one season to be a mom, you might be called one season to be a student, you might be called a different season to just rest. Like, so I feel like that can definitely shift, which is why it's important to like know your purpose of belonging to the Lord first and foremost, because your calling and the things that you do, putting your identity in those things can sometimes change. So I think that's a struggle for my girls, especially for me, for college students, I think in general, and women in general. I feel like that's a very big struggle. Men too, but I've found that women, like first and foremost, really need to like differentiate between the two. So
That's really good.
I don't
Like,
know. I wish I could answer how your calling
right.
and what season you're in specifically. I feel like nobody can really answer that, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, I just think that where you are and where you're going is purposeful, right? Because we have purpose. So I think that as long as you're trying to do the will of God, and as long as you're living out like the way that he has created you to be, like loving others and doing your thing, like then you're in his will. So, and he makes it all come together. So it's not like a strife thing. Like, so I guess if you're striving and if you feel like you're on empty 24/7, then maybe like some prayer and reflection could come with that. Like, am I in your will? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Yeah.
That's good. That's really
Mhm.
good. Yeah, because I think that, like you said, once you just focus on your purpose, I think your calling kind of falls like into your path, like it shouldn't have to be something where you're like pushing it, because I know when I was in college in Bloomington, I was going for nursing because that's just like what I felt called to do. And then when they told me like you have to have like a really, really high GPA to do it, and my GPA was decent, but like it was not as high as they wanted it to be. They're like, you have to change your major, like just like that.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and I was like, I don't, and I was sat there, I was like, okay, what can I think of? And I thought of like alternatives all day, and like I thought of my life and all the other like ways I could go. And I was like, none of this, like, I don't feel like at peace with any of this. The only thing I felt peace about was nursing. And I was like, but
Right.
I have to change it. I don't have a choice. But I knew
Right.
that deep down I felt like it wasn't right. And I was like, I don't know, like I don't feel like I could do anything else. Like I'd never been in the nursing field ever, but I still
Mhm.
just it didn't feel like I didn't feel peace with it. And
Right.
I think that
Right.
was God really being like, no, like that's not your path. Like I could feel him like protecting me almost. And
Right.
then when I was like, well, I'll just transfer home to a different school, which is obviously a lot harder than just like changing your major. So,
Mhm.
like trying to find your calling isn't always easy. Like
Right.
sometimes you do have to go through things like changing schools and like literally completely uplifting and like moving 4 hours away.
Right.
Like
Right.
some of you have to follow it, and you'll feel it. Like I knew that I felt that in my heart that I needed to move away, and it all like worked out so well. Like it keeps working out really well. So when you
Right.
trust that he has you and like be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my purpose, focus on loving him, getting close to him, you kind of see him talk to you, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And because when I mean, even as I've been like leading my Bible study this past year, like getting close to him is the thing that is going to help you. Like, because we really cannot do it on our own. And
Right.
I think like I have a similar situation too with like with social work. Like you feel it. Like you just feel, okay, this is like what I'm really good at.
Right.
Nursing is your calling, but your purpose, like God has created you with these gifts of like being compassionate and caring and
Right.
intelligent and knowing those fields. So like those things are just things that you have. Your nursing, like that job will change, that career, it will change and shift and whatever, but those things that you have, like your love and compassion and your ability to care for others, will always be constant. So I think that that's like something to even reflect in with yourself if you're somebody listening who is struggling with like, what is my purpose, what is my calling, like what are you good at, like what are you passionate about? Those things are important to discover when you're looking for that. So
That's really, that is super good. And that's weird that you said that too, because I never really thought about that, because obviously I'm a lot closer to God than I was like when I was trying to pick nursing. So it's like, I wasn't like reading the Bible. I wasn't doing all the things I do now, but I still see how God like made it work, you know? It's like, you'll
Right.
come to me later, but I need you to do this right now, you know? Because I wasn't thinking
Right.
about it when I chose that career really, but I could see that he had my back throughout that. And like,
Right.
even people now when they meet me, like like I'll ask like Seth all the time, because I spend all my time with him, like, what is like the one thing about me that like stands out to you, you know, like even if you didn't know me, because like I just get curious. And he always says like how compassionate and caring you are for others. And
Mhm.
that's just like, that's what nursing is, like, you know what I mean? That's literally what that field is. So I'm like, wow,
Right.
God really, like he knew what he was doing, like, and I didn't think about it consciously. So I agree, like if you're trying to figure out your calling, it's like, what do people know you for, you know, like, are you a leader? Because I know, Bailey, you're a leader 100%. And like you're completely caring, you're caring, you're compassionate, all of those things that need social work, like you can think on the spot, like you're really good at forming things and all of that. So that's perfect for you when you're caring for families or children or whatever, you know. And when you meet someone, you're like, oh, that suits them, like you can kind of tell their career path, you're like, that's a good choice.
Right.
And sometimes
Yeah.
I meet people and I'm like, I can't see you doing that, you know. I don't see that working.
Not working.
Like, okay,
Good try, but
like, well, at least you tried, that was good. I just don't see that, like, you know, sometimes you can't, like the things that they choose and then their personality doesn't fit, you know.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's even hard though, like when you're 18 and you're trying to find a career, I
Oh
think.
yeah. Think about that. Like that, I mean, that is like you're 18 and you're graduating high school and everyone's like, okay, find the one thing that you want to do for the rest of your life. Like
Right.
that is crazy. That's
Yeah,
a lot of pressure. And
that,
so yeah, and it's just like it's something that you really won't even know because like it will change. Like your career will change, your career will shift. Like so I just think like society puts a lot of pressure on you to do like one thing and
oh
stick to
yeah,
that one thing. And if you change anything like and go a different path or go a different direction than everyone else is going, then oh, you've messed up. And it's like, no.
exactly. Yep. That's so true. Yep. And
Yeah.
I think that was a really, like when I came back from IU Bloomington, because I was going to IUN, you know, like right over here. I didn't even really know I
Right.
even went there. And I couldn't, like, I think I cared so much at that time, like what people thought of me, you know, because like I wasn't very close to God. So I was so into like, oh, people are gonna think I'm like a loser and I'm not gonna find a boyfriend. Like I think about it now, I'm like, I was thinking of all the wrong things. Like
Yeah.
instead of looking out and being like, wow, God like completely did this because I would not have made this move like I did. Like I
Right.
knew that that was
Right.
him because that's unlike me completely.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
I was like so concerned about what everybody else was going to think that I was like going to a smaller college, even though I was still going for nursing. It's still a great school. I was so
Right.
worried and concerned because it wasn't what everyone else was doing. Everybody else was going to a huge college and like, you know, joining sororities, and I wasn't doing any of that. And
Mhm.
I'm like, you know, it doesn't really matter. Like, I know everyone says it, but it does not matter what people think
No.
about it. Because you're going to have
Yeah.
people who are like, wow, good for you. And you're going to have people who talk. Like, they're going to talk no matter what, if you're doing good or bad.
Right.
So if
Right.
you continuously sit there and like think about, oh my gosh, are they going to like this? Are they not? You're going to make yourself unhappy in life because you're going to be so concerned about everybody else. You're not going to do what you want to do.
Right. Exactly.
I
And
think
then
that's
you're like ended up living someone's life that you didn't even want, like,
right.
because you're
Yep.
listening to others.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another like thing I was thinking of when you were saying that is like, well, when you were talking about the nursing things is like God brings out your purpose in you within your calling. So
Yeah.
it's like, so that alone, like the fact that God is bringing it out of you, it's God oriented. Like nobody else's opinion even matters then because it's,
Exactly.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
so that is something else too to think about is like if your calling is God bringing the purpose out of you and it's God oriented, his opinion is the one that matters, which is easier said than done
Right.
because I'm still learning how to do that because I'm a big people pleaser and
Oh, yeah.
I want my life to look like what I want it to look like, right?
Right.
And so
Yep.
the Lord is always correcting me like you got to surrender this area better. You got to surrender this area better. And it's like your heart, if you're continuously putting your heart every day in a posture of surrender, like eventually you're never going to reach, I feel like, full surrender. I
Right.
feel like it's just an everyday thing. But as if you continue to put your heart into that posture, it will become easier to just like hear him and listen to him and go towards your calling.
That's really
So,
good. That's super good. Yeah. I think another thing too, when you were saying that, is like when you think about your calling and like you think about God and where he is and everything, like think about what your intentions are, like where you're going, because I've met a lot of people who they're like, oh, I'm in this field, and I'm like, oh, what are you here for, and they're like, oh, the money, like the money's really good, I can go wherever I want. And like some of those things are true, but like you need to have your intentions straight when you're doing something,
right.
right. And like if I've met people and I ask them like, hey, so like what's your plans, like not to be like encrypting on them or whatever, but just because I'm like curious, because I love seeing people's personalities and go with what they're choosing. I think it's really cool. And a lot, I'm like, oh, well, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, oh, why? Well, it's good money and blah, blah, and it's easy and it's that. And I'm like, I don't know if you can really find your calling when you're not thinking about the right things.
Right.
Like,
That's so true.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that's so true.
yeah. And like, you have to have your mind right. Like, okay, what do I love to do? Like, you don't have to love to help people. You don't have to be compassionate. Like not everybody has to have that, like you could love to help people in other ways, like IT, for instance, or you could be a personal trainer. Like there's so many things that you could do. But you have to think about like, what am I driven to do? And it's not to make money. I mean, that's not the only reason that we're on earth is to make money, and yeah, it'll be good and it'll probably make your life a lot easier, but it's not going to be as fulfilling as choosing something that you feel your soul called to do.
Right. Exactly. That's so good. And I feel like you're never like, your job will never really fully fulfill you, like obviously. So, and finding like your relationship with God first and then like going out from there, like we were talking about before, that is just like, I've learned through like leading and just being a student, even, it's like, that is the most important thing in your life, literally. Like, because if that is not straight, then everything else is falling, like for me at least, everything else is falling apart. So it's just like such a gift to be able to, that's the other thing. And I think that if you are questioning whether you're in your like calling or whatever, like I just feel like it's like you feel humble about it. Like I feel like with social work, like I feel like it's such a gift every day to wake up and do that. And
exactly,
that's like the Lord kind of working through that, because I feel like if it wasn't that way and if I felt a bit more prideful about it, and like, oh, like I'm so good and like I can do, like I'm making so much money, like that would not be, I feel like that would be not like the will of God, right? And also, waking up and being like, Lord, I can't do this without you, literally, like this job, I can't do this without you. I can't leave without you. Like that's how I know. I'm like, okay, this must be God, because I can't do it without him, and I'm literally just like asking for strength every day. So,
yeah, that's good. And something else to wrap up this calling thing, I was thinking when you were talking about when like Jesus was tempted, by the one who's like, I'll make you a king, like you could be rich, you could be all these things. And I feel like the devil can try to take away like God's calling for our lives and make us view it differently. And we don't think about it, but it's like, when you are all in for God and you are living out that purpose that we talked about, you want to do his will, which is just to love him and to love people. And when that's your will, or that's his will, it'll make you want to find something in that field that you can get that done with, because you're going to care so much about that purpose. And I think that reveals your calling. But like, I think the enemy can completely try to steal that. He could see you trying to find some way to do that and steer you. Well, this money is really good, or like, you'll be really top in the company if you do this, or you'll get the house you want. And he can try to tempt you with all of those earthly things to draw you away from your calling.
Yeah.
So I think just keeping your priorities straight and being like, wait, is that really the will of God? Or is that like the enemy trying to tempt me with all of these things that'll be so good, but they won't fulfill me, So just remembering that we are not here for a very long time, and just to keep your mind on like above and not earthly things, when picking your calling. So
that's so true. That's really good. Yeah.
So the next thing I want to talk about is singleness, because Bailey is the most like driven person when especially when it comes to singleness. Like she's like, no, I don't know. Like I do not need this right now. I am super good. And like I've said that when I was single, but I don't think I meant it. But you mean it. Like you truly mean that. And I could see it.
Oh Lord. I gotta check myself though, because I don't want my heart to be bitter. I don't want to be like, I've got this on my own, man. I don't want to, I don't want to be, you know what I mean?
Right. But I know a lot of people are single, and so I was wondering how like the Lord has blessed you in this season, and if you have any advice for people who are single right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I singleness is just so special. Like it really is. But it also is the biggest struggle because even though I really do take singleness seriously, and even though I have really I felt like I've been closer to Jesus through it, like it is really hard. And getting to that point, I feel like there's levels to it, to getting to the point where you're satisfied in it.
Yeah.
And the thing is like that I've really realized is I used to beat myself up for being like, I do want a boyfriend. Like, I do want to be in a relationship, but God has created us to want that kind of like covenant with someone. So when I thought about it that way, I was like, well, that's just like, because that's how God created me. And I know that he will, fulfill the desires of my heart. So I'm just going to go forth and love him first. And then, everything else will fall into place. And if that's meant for me, he will fulfill it. So I think like just this, again, going back to putting your heart in a posture of surrender and saying every day, like, Lord, I know that you've created us to be in relationship. And if that's for me, then you will fulfill it. And I'm just going to love you first and keep going and, keep trusting that you are good and everything that you do in my life is good. So I don't know. I really feel like if I wasn't single, I've been single for a long time. And like the Lord has really stretched that season out for me. And I feel like if I wasn't, I wouldn't love Jesus as much as I do like today, and maybe I would, just because I would like to think I would, but like but I don't know. I really feel like if I wasn't able to be truly alone with him and to truly fall, like I just feel like I've looked back over the years and like it's like looking at a love story almost. Like I just feel like I was able to really fall in love with Jesus in every stage of my life of being single, even when I was in a relationship at times and it didn't work out or whatever, and the Lord had to heal my heart from that. Like I just feel like it's like one big love story if you look at it like that. And that's just so sweet, because that is like the greatest love story of all time, falling in love with Jesus. So
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I think that like there was a point like a couple months back where I was like, you know what? I'm like so in love with you, Jesus. I just don't even want to add somebody else to my life right now, because I'm just so like captivated by you. And it was like kind of like funny, but I was just like, that is a really progress. Like, because there was a time where I was definitely like, you're not enough and I want a boyfriend. Yeah. You know what I mean? But getting to that place, that was really sweet. And the Lord was just like, yeah, that's what I like. I just love you, and he's a jealous God and he wants our hearts and he wants our attention.
Right.
So it's just like a beautiful thing, I think, to look back and just like look at the time that you've spent falling in love with Jesus, and that time just you and him. That's just a really sweet thing. And for those of you who are single, like it won't always be like that, like the Lord is going to bless you. And if that's a desire of your heart, he's going to fulfill it. And so using that time to fall in love with him, it's going to be something you want to look back on and something you want to hold close to you. So take that time and use it intentionally, it's definitely not a waste. And your life starts now, like not when you get in a relationship. So I think that was something that I had to figure out too.
Really good.
But yeah.
And that's really mature to be able to say, like, if it's in your will for me, like, yeah, okay, because I've known sometimes where like last night, like I've been praying for the certain clinical I'm supposed to get. And I really want this one, like this super close to my house. Like, I don't think it'll happen, but I really keep praying. So I was like praying last night. I was like, God, if it's in your will, but like, if it's not, I really want it to be. Like, I literally prayed that. I was like, no, I know if your will be done, but I really need this, like I find myself praying that stuff. I'm like, like I want to pray for your will, but I also want to pray for what I want. Like, honestly, that's just a completely honest thing to say. So it's like for you to say, you know what, like if I'm supposed to be in a relationship, like, okay, but even if I'm not, like I'm happy. Like that's a really good place to be. And I have
Right.
not met many people that get to that place. Like I really haven't. I
Right.
don't think I even really got to that place, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is
I mean, and some people are meant to be like, some people, that God's will is for you to be single and like to help people through that. And, I mean, I haven't really figured that out yet, if that is his will for my life. And I mean, I don't know. I really have a strong desire to be in a relationship, like a strong, strong desire.
yeah.
So obviously that's not from nothing, but,
Right. Right.
but yeah, I don't know. I just think that I am so glad that I used it intentionally. And like, I know we were talking yesterday and there's maybe going to be an end to that season soon. Maybe. But in a way, I'm kind of like, I'm exposed, but in a way, I'm kind of like, looking back and like, just like reminiscing a little bit,
Yeah.
because, and and even when you are in a relationship, it's always going to be you and Jesus. Like, he continuously reminds me of that every day. It's like, it's me and you, Bailey, just it's me
Yeah.
and you, like in every situation. And when
Yeah.
you like are falling in love with him, like it's just, he loves you perfectly. And
Right.
that's just like so sweet that you get to do that first before anybody loves you next. Like
Yeah.
you get to fall in love and be in love perfectly before anybody loves you next. And nobody will love you perfectly like Jesus does.
Yeah.
So it's just like a very sweet thing, I think.
That's really
And
good.
it's not always thought of like that. It's very hard. And I'm not just going to say it's not hard, because it is. It's very
Yeah.
hard when all of your friends get married too. And you're just like, like you're always the bridesmaid, right? But no, no, it's, I love it. And, love
That's
it. But,
That's
but yeah, he blesses you, and he is good. And those are things to remember, like when you're struggling, like just, and even if your heart doesn't believe it, it's like, that is the truth. So just keep
that's
telling
so
yourself,
good.
like, he is good and he's gonna bless me and it's gonna
Right.
be yeah.
Yes. Because that's true. I still, like, since I'm in a relationship, I reminisce all the time about when I was single, and, like what I would do, because I was like, really like that's all I had. Like I literally felt like Jesus was all I had. So I would just read my Bible every single morning, wake up, watch the sunrise, read my Bible. Like I was so in love, and I still am, but it's changed that way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's had to change. And there's been seasons where I'm like on fire completely for God, and there's seasons where I'm like, wow, I need to like do more.
Yeah.
Because it's never going to be like completely perfect. You can never completely love him, because we're so
Right.
sinful. But it's like I reminisce on those seasons. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I did that, because
Yeah.
it really laid the foundation for me. Because like there's days when obviously Seth's love is imperfect, like he's a guy. I mean, not just a guy, but he's, I mean, he's a human being. So it's like it's
Right.
not going to be perfect.
Right.
He has his things that he does. And so when he like can't love me right, or there's seasons where we're like having a rough patch, like I'm not like breaking, because it's like I already know that Jesus loves me so much, and I already
Right.
know all the grace he has for me. And since
Right.
I know that, I have grace for Seth, and since Seth knows that, he has grace for me. So
Right.
that's like makes it possible for us to even love each other, because we
Oh
both
yeah,
laid
that's
that
good.
foundation. And Seth more found his foundation than
Right. That's so
yeah, but it's still there, like regardless, it's still there. And I think I really needed to like have a foundation of Jesus before I got in a relationship, because my relationship before that, where I didn't have Jesus, were a complete disaster. And I completely blame that on me not like being all there with God, because it's really easy to like make that relationship your identity.
Oh yeah.
I think, I've done that so much. And I think that's because I didn't know that I was like completed before I got into a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Right.
supposed to complete me. So then when he would have issues, I would be like, oh my gosh, like complete, like I said, a complete dumpster fire disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, and it's crazy because like the Lord, I feel like, is his timing. He will hold you back from it if you're not ready, if your heart is not ready,
right,
because he doesn't want you to idolize that, because it's never going to complete you, and knows he can complete you. So
right,
I remember I was in a relationship in high school where like we broke up, and I didn't even realize I put my identity in him. And then when we broke up, I just felt like I wanted to just like die. Like I was like, I have nothing like left. My heart is still broken. And I was like, dang, when did I get here? Like,
right,
you just don't even realize, I guess, sometimes that you're doing it. And
Right.
but the Lord knows your heart. So like, even if you think you're ready and you're just mad at God, like, why aren't you giving me this yet? I feel like I'm ready. Like, maybe
Right.
there's another level, and like pray on that level and ask him, what is going on in my heart where maybe I'm not ready for this yet, so, and he'll tell you, like, he will show you.
That's
So
really cool. And even like I remember I was thinking, I was like, I'm in such a good place to like be in a relationship right now, like last year. And me and Seth were talking, and like there were some changes that he made to his life in specific months. And it was weird because I was like so ready, like I felt so ready. And then we started dating at the end of July, like we started hanging, or August, we started hanging out. And he
right,
made like these major decisions in his life in like June,
right,
July. And he like, we talked about it, and I was like, that's why. Like I felt so ready then, but maybe that's why, because like Seth had just made these changes, and we were like, that's so weird that we just got together and like you've decided all these things for yourself and whatever. And I was like,
yeah,
that's why, like God was preparing him too.
right,
Like we only think that he was preparing us, but like, if you really feel those desires that you're going to be with someone, he's probably working on them too, so.
right, exactly. Yeah, and choosing to follow Jesus, is always going to come with like a little bit of, narrow path, and choosing not to just get into random relationships,
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you're not feeling it, or if you're not ready,
Right.
and choosing to like guard your heart and have boundaries. Those things are not easy because we're
Right.
human,
Yeah,
but they are for your best benefit. So
exactly. That's really good.
mm,
So
mm.
lastly, to wrap this up, this is kind of a bigger question, so however you want to like condense it or whatever, but what does it mean to be a leader / a woman of influence? Because I know that you influence a lot of people. So
Well, it's mostly Jesus. It's actually all Jesus, not me. I just show up, but um feel like, yeah, that question is a big one. But yeah, I don't know. The biggest thing that I can say about that is the Lord just like uses your whole life, and people are watching your life even if you don't realize they are.
yeah.
Like I just remember last year, like I had never led like that before. I've never led, but I had about 30 girls. I was in my sphere of influence, and it was just me for a while, and then I got a co-leader. Shout out to Brooklyn. She saved my life. But no, it's really kind of crazy because they were watching me even when I wasn't realizing they were watching me.
Right.
And then like down the line, when I started getting to know them more and we started having group more, and the way that I saw them interacting with each other and with other people, I was like, I feel like they're watching me, like, because I showed them that, I feel like, and I did that with unintentionally, but the Lord was like, yeah, like your life is, that's why it's very important to be intentional in your private life, because people are watching you even if you don't know it. And especially if you're leading, if you're any type of leader in your home, and you don't have to even have a title.
Right.
If you're leading friends, if you're leading, with a title, people are really watching you and watching how your relationship with God is, and watching how you handle your relationship with God. And I mean, that sounds a little scary, but it's not, like, because the Lord is so graceful and uses your life in a way where, like, even the things, your mistakes, and the areas you messed up, and the areas that really suck, like in your life, like he uses them, and he uses your vulnerability to lead, to show others himself, basically. So yeah, and there were so many times last year where I was just going through it, man. And I was just honest with them. Like, listen, I can't show up today, and the Lord's just gonna have to. And he did, and they saw that. And one of my girls even said, like, I think that the biggest thing that I learned this year was that the Lord will use all of your seasons. And I was like, and she was like, yeah, because we went through it together, like, we all did. And so us being vulnerable towards each other, even, and creating that atmosphere, was really, like, the Lord really worked through that. So I would just say, like, if you are in that position, being vulnerable and allowing the Lord to just like speak through your life publicly, even in front of others, and being honest about that is so important, because he uses every area, and people are like looking at you even if you don't realize it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're a Christian, and because Jesus is attractive, like, people are going to see you And if you're living out, God's will for your life, they're going to see that and they're going to want to see what that's all about, so it's just important to like really be intentional and really to live your private life too, like intentionally, and to be in the word and to be looking at, Jesus, how do you want me to handle this? Jesus, how do you handle this? Yeah, that's important too. So
That's really good. That reminded me of something. I was watching a sermon the other day, and it was saying like, if your life doesn't look different than somebody who doesn't know Jesus, so like it doesn't look any different on how you resolve conflicts, how you treat other people, your joy that you're supposed to have in trials, like all of those things, if your life doesn't look any different, why would anyone be attracted to get to know God?
yeah,
No one's
exactly.
they're not gonna see a difference. So they're gonna be like, why would I adapt this lifestyle? And like, why would I go to church? Or why would I get to know who Jesus is? Like
Right.
act like XYZ, whatever. So we
Right.
have to make our lives like, first of all, Jesus should be shifting your life. Like it should look different than
Right.
someone else. You should be
Right.
able to be nice to those people who you don't really have favor with. I mean, I know that for me, like I've done that a lot. I'm like, how did I do that? That was not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Because like I feel a certain way, and then like when you're around those people, it's just like he just feels out of you, And I'm like, wow, I
Yeah,
really
it
thought I was
does.
bitter, but like
Yeah.
completely had my back.
Yeah, it does.
So,
It
and
does.
that looks different than people. Like it completely does. They're like, my gosh, this person's really nice, or they're really happy and they're really full of joy, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, why? There's a reason why, because it's just not natural to feel joy in
Yeah.
trials. So if we
Yeah.
make our life look differently, like Jesus should be shaping it, people are gonna
Right.
be more like accustomed to wanting to get to know him.
Right.
So
Right. And I think for women, it's especially important to like, even if you have friends or like siblings or cousins or whatever that you can disciple, like
yeah,
discipling doesn't have to have a title.
right.
Um, like you're discipling just by pouring into people. So that's so important for women. Like we need that. We really, really need that. And I mean, in leading in general, like, your relationship with God grows when you're discipling others, when you're intentionally pouring into others, like your own relationship only deepens. So it's just like a beautiful, like little circle of I'm going to pour into you and then God's going to pour into me to pour into you, but then I'm going to get poured into too, because
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like it's a good little, that's how it's meant to be, it's like it's a really beautiful thing for sure. And it's been like really, it's been so cool because I have never had to rely on God like I did when I was leading all of those girls. Like and they're like, I feel like they're like my kids. Like I just love them so much. And
Right.
I can't imagine my life without them. Like it's just been a very beautiful thing, and it's been really great to be able to hear from the Holy Spirit and to like let God do that. And I've been in a place where I wasn't listening to God and trying to do it on my own, and in a place where I was like, you know what, I can't do this and I need you to just like speak through me.
Right.
And the difference is incredible.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. And it's like the people you're leading need you to surrender so that they can get Jesus, because they're going to get you and Jesus if you're surrendered, but they're going to get more Jesus. And that's what they need. They need Jesus, not you, like,
Yep.
so yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on here and sharing your heart and like telling me all the things that God has been teaching you, because it's so good, like literally so good, everything that you said. So
Thank you for having me, Carly. You're the best. Like, and you're living out God's call for your life. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Aw, thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope that you really soaked in everything that she said. She is so amazing, has so much good advice, and I need a notebook after listening to that. So, again, thank you, Bailey. Thank you for sharing your heart and just being such a good friend to me, leading me to God, and leading so many other people. Hope you guys enjoyed.